A person wakes up, thinks about work, the brain receives a suggestion. Thinks about breakfast, the system makes a recommendation. Thinks about an unpleasant email, the emotion is softened. No one panics, no one sees danger. The problem isn't that someone can read your thoughts, it's that you're getting used to having them thought for you. That morning feels no different from yesterday. No visible implants, no screens lighting up inside your head. Everything happens so naturally that your brain doesn't register it as interference. Not because the technology is too powerful, but because it is too smooth. On your way to work, you no longer weigh options. The optimal route appears before you even ask. When your heart rate rises slightly from anxiety, the sensation settles almost instantly, as if someone adjusted a very small dial inside your head. You haven't lost control, you're still making decisions, but they arrive faster, feel lighter, and demand less effort. This technology wasn't created to control humans, it was built to help. First for patients who lost the ability to speak, for those paralyzed, for brains that no longer functioned as before. And it succeeded too well.
When assistance becomes perfect, you no longer have a reason to refuse it. Little by little, the brain learns to rely on those suggestions, not out of laziness, but because it feels like the most reasonable way to survive in an increasingly fast world. There is no moment where you say, stop, no clear boundary between your thoughts and assisted thoughts. Only gradual familiarity. And within that familiarity, something very small has changed. Thought is no longer the final private space. The question is not when this technology will arrive. It already has. The question is, when it becomes completely normal, will you still notice the moment you stop thinking alone?
The most concerning part is this. This technology is not from the future. It is already here, not as a mass brain implant, but as small steps, scattered and entirely reasonable. In hospitals, paralyzed patients can control robotic arms using only their thoughts. People who lost the ability to speak can generate words through decoded neural signals. The brain emits signals. Machines learn to read them. And for the first time, thought is no longer trapped inside the skull. This is not science fiction. This is science in operation. These technologies were built with a clear purpose: to heal, to restore, to improve quality of life. And they succeeded. But the history of technology reveals a familiar pattern. What begins in medicine rarely stays in medicine. The internet began as a military network. GPS was once classified. Smartphones were never designed to track human emotion, yet we grew accustomed to carrying them everywhere. Technology doesn't change the world overnight. It changes what we consider normal. Today, you don't need implants for your brain to start revealing itself. Headphones can track levels of focus. Apps can predict stress. Algorithms can infer emotion from behavior alone. They cannot read thoughts yet, but they already know when you're tired, when you're anxious, and when you're most vulnerable. And from that moment on, the question is no longer whether the brain can connect to machines. It is how deeply we will allow that connection to go. There is no moment where you decide, from today on, I'll let technology think for me. It doesn't happen as a choice, it happens as a habit. At first, you only use suggestions when you really need them, when you're tired, when you're overwhelmed, when you don't want to think anymore. The system suggests how to respond to an email, when to take a break, what task to focus on next. Every suggestion feels reasonable, every decision feels lighter, and your brain learns quickly. The brain doesn't care who is thinking. It only cares about what saves energy. Gradually, you begin to wait for suggestions before asking yourself. You're no longer sure whether you want to do something next, or whether you're simply choosing the best recommended option. When faced with a difficult decision, you feel uneasy without assistance. Not because you've become weaker, but because your brain has adapted to not carrying the full load. Emotions start to change in the same way. When anxiety appears, the system softens it. When irritation rises, it adjusts gently. It doesn't erase emotions, it just makes them easier to tolerate. When negative emotions disappear too quickly, you're no longer sure whether they were truly yours. Over time, you don't lose the ability to think independently, but you lose the reason to do it. Thinking alone is slower, more exhausting, and less efficient than assisted thinking. And in a world measured by speed, performance, and stability, independent thought begins to look like an option you don't really need. There is no villain in this story, no government controlling thoughts, no corporation manipulating minds, no one ordering you to connect. Everything happens legally, voluntarily, and with clear benefits. You are still the one deciding, at least on paper. But society begins to change in subtle ways. People using cognitive assistance work faster, make fewer mistakes, remain emotionally stable. They are not smarter than you. They are simply better supported. The gap is not intelligence, it is speed. At work, they respond faster, decide sooner, adapt better under pressure. You can still do the job, it just takes you longer. And in a world measured by speed, time becomes a disadvantage. No one tells you that you are wrong. No one forces you to change, but opportunities begin flowing elsewhere. Not being excluded does not mean you are not being left behind. You can still choose to think alone, to avoid assistance, to stay less connected. But every such choice comes with a cost. Fewer opportunities, less competitiveness, lower priority. No law forbids you from living slowly, but the world is no longer designed for you. And here, freedom begins to change its meaning. It is no longer the right to choose anything. It is the ability to bear the consequences of not choosing optimization. This world does not collapse. There is no apocalypse, no historic moment recorded, no clear line crossed. Life goes on. Systems keep working. In many ways, things improve. People are less stressed. Decisions are faster. Efficiency increases. And because of that, no one sees a reason to stop. The most dangerous failure is the one that doesn't hurt. Gradually, thinking alone becomes a rare skill, not because it disappears, but because it is no longer practiced. When every question comes with a better suggestion, asking it yourself starts to feel unnecessary. When every emotion can be adjusted, facing it feels optional. No one takes your thoughts away. You simply stop using them. And then, on a very ordinary day, you ask a simple question. If my thoughts are always assisted, always optimized, always adjusted, what part of them is truly mine? Not because machines became more human, but because humans grew comfortable with not being fully human. And the final question is not, how far will this technology go? It is, when thought is no longer the last private space, is thinking alone still a real choice?